Have you ever felt trapped inside your own mind, caught in a whirlwind of thoughts that never seem to stop? Do you find yourself replaying past conversations or events, worrying about everything that could go wrong in the future, or endlessly analyzing the present moment until you're too exhausted to think clearly? If you've ever experienced the overwhelming weight of overthinking, you're not alone. Overthinking can feel like an invisible burden, a constant companion that weighs you down and steals your peace of mind. It's a silent thief, robbing you of your joy, your focus, and your ability to fully engage with the world around you. But here's the good news. There's a way to break free from the cycle of overthinking and find the peace and clarity you've been searching for. The answer doesn't lie in controlling every thought that enters your mind or trying to escape the chaos. Instead, it lies in shifting the way you relate to your thoughts, letting go of unnecessary worries, and learning how to be present in each and every moment. In today's video, we're diving deep into 6 profound teachings from Buddhism that can help you stop overthinking and reclaim your inner peace. These teachings are simple, yet powerful, offering timeless wisdom that can change the way you experience life. Starting today, whether you're struggling with anxiety, stress, or simply the never-ending barrage of thoughts that cloud your mind, these teachings can guide you toward a more peaceful, focused, and present way of living. You'll learn how to break free from the past, stop obsessing over the future, and discover the power of mindfulness to quiet your mind. We'll explore how letting go of the need for control and embracing the simplicity of life can help you stop overthinking once and for all. And most importantly, we'll talk about how trusting in the impermanence of life can help you find peace, even in the most challenging moments. But here's the thing. These teachings are not just abstract concepts. They're practical tools you can use every single day to transform the way you think and feel. So if you're ready to stop being held hostage by your own thoughts, get ready to explore these powerful Buddhist principles that will help you live a life of greater peace, freedom, and clarity. Before we dive in, if you're excited about learning how to overcome overthinking and bring more peace into your life, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with anyone you know who could benefit from these teachings. Together, let's start a journey of mindfulness, inner peace, and mental clarity. Let's dive in. Overthinking is often described as a silent thief that steals your peace of mind, leaving you trapped in a maze of endless thoughts, anxieties, and worries. In a world where distractions are plentiful and the pressures of daily life seem never-ending, it's easy to get caught up in this mental whirlwind. Whether you find yourself obsessively ruminating over past mistakes, fearing future events, or endlessly analyzing your present circumstances, overthinking can paralyze your mind, leaving you feeling emotionally exhausted and mentally cluttered. It's a condition that affects countless people, leading to stress, anxiety, and even depression. But the good news is that there's a way out. And that way is through mindfulness and wisdom, both of which are central teachings in Buddhism. Buddhism, with its emphasis on the present moment, impermanence, and mindfulness, offers timeless wisdom that can help you break free from the cycle of overthinking. By learning to focus on the here and now, detach from unnecessary thoughts, and cultivate inner peace, you can create space for clarity and tranquility in your life. This wisdom isn't just abstract philosophy. It's practical and deeply relevant to our modern struggles with mental health, anxiety, and stress. The teachings of the Buddha provide simple yet profound insights that can guide us towards a more peaceful, focused, and fulfilling existence. The first and perhaps most fundamental teaching is to understand that the past is gone and the future is uncertain. This is a cornerstone of Buddhist philosophy, and it's one of the most powerful antidotes to overthinking. How often do we find ourselves trapped in the past, reliving past mistakes, or holding on to guilt or regret? Maybe we think about a conversation we had years ago and replay it over and over in our minds, wishing we had said something differently or wondering how the other person felt. Or perhaps we're obsessed with the future, worrying about what might happen or how we can prepare for every possible scenario. Both of these mental patterns, however, keep us stuck. They prevent us from being present in the moment and fully experiencing the life we're living right now. The Buddha reminds us that the past is already behind us, and the future is an illusion that hasn't yet arrived. The only time we truly have is the present. Living in the present moment isn't just a lofty idea, it's a practice, one that requires constant mindfulness and awareness. The Buddha himself said, "Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment." This teaching encourages us to release our grip on both past regrets and future worries, and to embrace the here and now. When we do this, we stop allowing our thoughts to rule us, and we begin to experience a profound sense of peace. For example, imagine you're sitting in a park, feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin, listening to the birds chirping, and noticing the breeze in the trees. If you can fully immerse yourself in this moment, free from the distractions of the past or future, you'll likely experience a deep sense of calm and contentment. This moment is all you have. The present is where life unfolds, and it's where true peace can be found. The more you focus on the present, the more you can quiet the mind and stop the incessant cycle of overthinking. A Buddhist story perfectly illustrates this teaching. A monk and his young disciple were traveling when they reached a fast-moving river. The monk calmly crossed the river, while the young disciple hesitated, fearing the strong current. Seeing his disciple's anxiety, the monk said, "Don't worry, my friend. The river is always flowing. The only way to cross it is to be present and trust the moment." The disciple, though fearful, trusted the monk's words and crossed the river with ease. The story teaches us that dwelling on past fears or future obstacles only prevents us from fully experiencing the present. If the disciple had focused too much on the potential dangers of the river, he would never have crossed it. The same principle applies to our lives. If we spend all our time worrying about past mistakes or future troubles, we prevent ourselves from living in the present and experiencing the peace that exists right here, right now. Another essential Buddhist teaching that can help you break free from overthinking is the idea that thoughts are like clouds. Just as clouds come and go, so do our thoughts. If we can learn not to attach to them, we can free ourselves from the grip of overthinking. Overthinking often happens when we become attached to our thoughts, believing they define us or that they require action. But just like clouds in the sky, thoughts are temporary. They float by and change shape, and they don't need to be grabbed or held onto. If we can learn to simply observe our thoughts without getting caught up in them, we can create distance between ourselves and the mental chaos that often accompanies overthinking. Imagine sitting by a river, watching leaves float by on the current. You don't try to grab every leaf as it passes, do you? Instead, you allow the leaves to drift by naturally, knowing that more leaves will come. Similarly, when you allow your thoughts to pass without trying to control or cling to them, they lose their power over you. This doesn't mean that you'll stop having thoughts altogether, but it does mean that you won't allow them to dominate your mind or dictate your emotions. You can choose not to engage with them. Buddha himself taught, "With our thoughts, we make the world. Our thoughts shape our reality, and by letting go of negative or overactive thoughts, we can shape our lives with a clearer and more peaceful mindset." This is an important lesson for anyone struggling with overthinking. Don't attach to your thoughts, and don't let them define you. One of the most powerful insights Buddhism offers is the realization that overthinking often leads to suffering. The Buddha taught that suffering is not caused by external events, but by our reaction to those events. In other words, it's not the situation itself that causes our pain, but the way we respond to it. Overthinking is a form of mental reaction, an attempt to control the uncontrollable. We try to analyze every possible outcome, worry about the worst-case scenario, and hold on tightly to things that are beyond our control. But this only leads to more stress and anxiety. The Buddha said, "Suffering is not caused by the events in our lives, but by our reaction to them." When we overthink, we are often reacting to something that we cannot change. We dwell on what has already happened or stress about what might happen, and in doing so, we invite unnecessary pain and suffering into our lives. A simple story from Buddhist teachings illustrates this point. There was once a person who spent all their energy trying to push a large boulder uphill. Despite their best efforts, the boulder never moved. A wise monk observed this and asked, Why are you pushing a boulder that is not moving?" The person was frustrated, exhausted, and yet they couldn't stop trying to move the boulder. The monk simply said, "Let go. The path will become clear." The lesson here is that sometimes the most empowering thing we can do is to release our attachment to control and stop fighting against the inevitable. Overthinking often arises from our attempt to control things that are out of our hands. By letting go of this need for control, we free ourselves from the cycle of suffering and regain our peace of mind. Mindfulness is another powerful tool that Buddhism offers to help us break free from overthinking. Mindfulness is the practice of paying attention to the present moment with full awareness and without judgment. It's about being present with our thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations, but not getting swept away by them. One of the simplest and most effective ways to practice mindfulness is by focusing on your breath. When your mind starts to race and overthinking sets in, simply bring your attention to your breath. Take a deep breath in, hold it for a moment, and then exhale slowly. This simple act anchors you in the present moment and quiets the mind. The Buddha taught, when the mind is calm, the breath is calm. This reflects the deep connection between our mental state and our breath. When we can bring our awareness to our breath, we can also bring our mind into a state of peace. This is a practice that you can do anywhere, anytime, whether you're at home, at work, or in a stressful situation. Mindfulness helps you break free from the grip of overthinking and return to a place of clarity and calm. Buddhism also teaches the importance of simplicity in life. In today's world, it's easy to complicate our lives with unnecessary worries and distractions. We worry about our work, our relationships, our appearance, and the future. But Buddhism teaches that simplicity is the key to happiness. When we simplify our lives, we release the burden of unnecessary worries. The Buddha often spoke about the importance of living simply, both in thoughts and actions. He said, "There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path." This means that happiness isn't something we need to chase or overthink. It's found in the simple, everyday moments. Zen monks, for example, live by a principle called Shubhumi, which refers to the beauty of simplicity. One Zen master said, "The simpler the life, the more profound the meaning." By reducing mental clutter and focusing on what truly matters, we can experience a deeper sense of peace and fulfillment. Finally, Buddhism teaches us the essential truth of impermanence. Everything in life is constantly changing. This includes our thoughts, our emotions, and our circumstances. The Buddha said, "All conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence." This teaching encourages us to trust that everything, whether good or bad, will eventually change. Overthinking often arises from a fear of permanence, that we will always feel anxious, that our problems will never go away. But impermanence offers hope. Your worries, anxieties, and struggles will eventually pass. Nothing lasts forever. When you can embrace this truth, you can let go of the fear that your overthinking will never end, and instead find peace in the understanding that all things change, even your thoughts. Incorporating these teachings into your life can be a transformative experience. By focusing on the present moment, letting go of attachment to thoughts, and practicing mindfulness, you can break free from the cycle of overthinking and cultivate a deep sense of inner peace. Through the wisdom of Buddhism, we can learn to quiet the mind, simplify our lives, and trust in the impermanence of our thoughts and emotions. Over time, these practices will lead to a greater sense of clarity, joy, and freedom from the mental clutter that so often holds us back. We live in a world where the past and future are often dominant forces in our minds. Whether we're reflecting on things that happened years ago or worrying about what might come, it's easy to become consumed by thoughts that have little to do with the present moment. It's a cycle that perpetuates itself. We revisit past mistakes, replay conversations in our heads, and wonder what could have been different. At the same time, we fret about future possibilities, what might go wrong, how we can control the unknown, and what challenges we might face down the road. It's as if we are constantly pulled in two directions: backward toward what's already passed, and forward toward a future that has not yet arrived. But Buddhism offers a powerful antidote to this perpetual cycle of overthinking and anxiety. the simple yet profound teaching that the past is gone, and the future is uncertain. Focus on the present moment. This teaching serves as a gentle but firm reminder that the only moment that truly exists is the one right in front of us. The past is already behind us, and no amount of ruminating or regret can change what has already transpired. Likewise, the future remains an unknown, an endless series of possibilities, many of which we cannot control. What remains in our power, however, is the present moment. It's here, in the present, that life unfolds, and where we have the opportunity to experience peace, clarity, and connection. The Buddha's words, "Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment," are as relevant today as they were over 2.500 years ago. These words invite us to step outside the grip of time, to cease allowing our thoughts to anchor us in memories or fears that only drain our mental energy. Instead, we are encouraged to cultivate a deeper awareness of the now. In essence, the present moment is the only space where life can be truly experienced. It's where the richness of existence reveals itself in the sounds, sights, and sensations of our surroundings, and in the simple act of being alive. The real challenge lies in practicing this teaching. It's easy enough to say, live in the present, but doing so requires conscious effort and a shift in our habitual patterns of thinking. Overthinking, by its nature, is an escape from the present. It's an attempt to relive the past or anticipate the future, often at the expense of being grounded in the here and now. But by learning to quiet the mind and direct our attention to the present moment, we begin to cultivate a peace that eludes us when we let our thoughts wander. To understand this teaching more deeply, let's consider a story from Buddhist tradition that illustrates its truth. One day, a monk and his young disciple were traveling together when they encountered a fast-flowing river. The monk, calm and composed, crossed the river without hesitation. The young disciple, however, was overcome with fear. He hesitated, unable to move forward because he was consumed by the thought that the river's current might carry him away. The monk noticed his disciple's distress and, with kindness, reassured him, "Don't worry, my friend. The river is always flowing, but the only way to cross it is to be present and trust in the moment." This story is a powerful reminder of the dangers of dwelling on the past or future. The disciples' fear of the river wasn't based on the actual present moment, it was based on imagined future scenarios, fears about what might happen, and memories of past challenges. His anxiety prevented him from crossing the river in peace. By contrast, the monk's calmness came from his ability to focus on the present moment. He didn't let his mind wander into hypothetical dangers or past experiences. Instead, he trusted the flow of the river and took each step with mindfulness. It was only when the disciple was able to let go of his fears and focus on the present that he was able to cross the river safely. In our own lives, this story provides a meaningful lesson. How many times do we get caught up in worries about the future or regrets about the past, only to find that these thoughts prevent us from fully engaging with the present moment? Overthinking robs us of the peace and clarity that can be found when we simply focus on what is happening right now. It's easy to get lost in our thoughts, to mentally replay old conversations or imagine worst-case scenarios. But doing so only keeps us trapped in an endless cycle of mental turmoil. The key to breaking this cycle is to bring our awareness back to the present. When we feel our minds start to wander into the past or future, we can gently redirect our focus to the here and now. It's not always easy, especially when overthinking has become a habitual response to stress or uncertainty. But with practice, it becomes easier to recognize when we are dwelling on the past or worrying about the future and to bring our attention back to the present moment. One way to practice this is through mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in whatever we are doing, whether it's eating, walking, or simply breathing. By paying attention to the sensory experiences of the present moment, what we see, hear, smell, taste, and feel, we begin to anchor ourselves in the now. This helps to quiet the mind and stop the incessant cycle of overthinking. For instance, when you're walking outside, rather than allowing your mind to wander to the stresses of your day or to worries about what comes next, Focus on the sensations in your body, the feeling of your feet on the ground, the sensation of the wind on your skin, the sounds of birds chirping or leaves rustling in the trees. By focusing on these simple, sensory experiences, you can ground yourself in the present and break free from the grip of overthinking. Another approach is to create space for moments of stillness in your day, whether it's through meditation, prayer, or simply taking a few minutes to sit quietly. Carving out time to be present with your thoughts without judgment can help you cultivate a sense of peace. It's during these moments of stillness that we can learn to observe our thoughts rather than becoming entangled in them. We can acknowledge our thoughts as they arise, but we don't have to identify with them or follow them down a path of overanalysis. Just like clouds passing through the sky, thoughts come and go. When we let them be, without holding on to them, we free ourselves from their power. The benefits of focusing on the present moment are profound. When we stop dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, we begin to experience life more fully. We become more attuned to the beauty around us, the relationships we have, and the small moments of joy that often go unnoticed. Rather than being caught in a mental fog of what ifs and should haves, we can appreciate the reality of the moment. We find peace in the simple act of being present. This doesn't mean that we should ignore the past or future entirely. Reflecting on past experiences can be valuable for growth, and planning for the future is necessary for practical reasons. However, the key is to recognize when our thoughts have crossed into the realm of overthinking, when we are no longer living in the present moment, but are instead trapped in cycles of regret or anxiety. By practicing mindfulness and bringing our focus back to the present, we can avoid becoming lost in these mental traps. It's also important to remember that overthinking often stems from a desire for control. We want to change the past, or we want to predict the future. So we try to control our thoughts and actions in a way that keeps us safe or prepared for every possible scenario. But the truth is, we cannot control everything, and many of our worries are based on things that are beyond our control. Letting go of the need to control the past or future and simply focusing on what is happening right now allows us to experience freedom. It's only when we stop clinging to past regrets or future anxieties that we can experience the peace that comes from living in the moment. In our fast-paced world, where we are constantly distracted by technology, news, and social media, it's more important than ever to practice this teaching. Our minds are constantly bombarded with information and stimuli, making it easy to get caught up in the swirl of past and future concerns. But by cultivating the ability to focus on the present moment, we can find refuge from the chaos of the outside world and from the clutter of our own minds. When we do so, we create space for peace, clarity, and a deeper sense of connection with ourselves and others. To conclude, the teaching that the past is gone and the future is uncertain focus on the present moment is a powerful antidote to the mental chaos of overthinking. By letting go of past regrets and future worries, we free ourselves to experience the present moment in all its richness. The present is the only time we truly have, and it's in the present that we can find peace, whether through mindfulness, stillness, or simply paying attention to the sensations of the here and now. We can learn to anchor ourselves in the present and let go of the grip of overthinking. The more we practice this, the more we experience the peace and clarity that comes from living in the moment, free from the distractions of the past and future. Overthinking can often feel like a storm inside your head, a chaotic whirlwind of ideas, worries, and reflections that never seem to stop. Your mind becomes cluttered, and you find yourself replaying past conversations or anticipating future outcomes, unable to find stillness or peace. The constant barrage of thoughts creates a sense of mental exhaustion, and over time, this mental noise can feel overwhelming. It's in these moments of turmoil that we often wish for a way to quiet the mind, to bring an end to the cycle of overthinking, and to find peace. One of the most profound teachings of the Buddha offers a solution to this. The idea that thoughts are like clouds, impermanent and ever-changing, and that we should not cling to them. Buddha's wisdom on the nature of thoughts is simple yet transformative. In one of his teachings, he said, "With our thoughts, we make the world." This statement reveals the immense power that our thoughts hold in shaping our experiences. Our thoughts shape how we see the world, how we interact with others, and how we respond to situations. They influence our mood, our actions, and ultimately our happiness or suffering. However, the key to dealing with overthinking is not to fight against these thoughts, but to understand them for what they are: impermanent and fleeting, like clouds drifting across the sky. When we think of clouds, we typically imagine them as something that comes and goes. One minute the sky may be overcast, and the next minute, the clouds have cleared, leaving behind blue skies. Clouds are ever-changing, constantly moving, and never static. The same applies to our thoughts. They are not permanent fixtures within our minds. They rise, linger for a while, and then dissipate, only to be replaced by new thoughts. In this sense, thoughts are not something we should identify with or cling to. They are simply passing phenomena, much like clouds in the sky. The problem arises when we become attached to our thoughts. Overthinking occurs when we begin to dwell on particular thoughts, to grab onto them, and to let them define us. When we do this, our thoughts start to take on more significance than they deserve. We might start to identify with them, thinking that they are us, or that they represent the truth of our situation. But this is not the case. Just because a thought arises in our mind doesn't mean it is accurate, useful, or even a reflection of reality. Often, overthinking is fueled by negative or irrational thoughts, worries about the future, regrets about the past, or doubts about ourselves. These thoughts can spiral into a cycle of anxiety, stress, and confusion, making it difficult to find clarity. Buddha's teaching encourages us to practice non-attachment to our thoughts. In other words, we should learn not to cling to them or allow them to control us. Just as we don't grab every cloud that passes across the sky, we should not try to hold onto every thought that arises in our minds. Instead, we should let them pass by, acknowledging them without judgment, and then allowing them to drift away. By doing so, we free ourselves from the grip of overthinking, and we regain control over our mental space. One simple yet effective way to practice this is through mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in the moment, observing our thoughts and feelings without becoming overwhelmed by them. When a thought arises, rather than clinging to it, we can observe it with curiosity. For example, if we begin to feel anxious about an upcoming event, we can recognize the thought, "I'm feeling anxious about this presentation," without getting caught up in the worry. We can acknowledge the thought, but then gently let it go, allowing it to pass like a cloud in the sky. This practice requires patience and awareness, but over time, it helps us become less attached to our thoughts and less affected by them. Imagine sitting by a river, watching the water flow peacefully downstream. As the river moves, leaves and twigs float past, carried by the current. You don't reach out to grab every leaf that passes by. You simply watch them as they float downstream, one by one, without effort or attachment. Similarly, our thoughts are like these leaves on the river. They float by, sometimes in large numbers, sometimes in small clusters, but they don't need to be held onto. We don't need to grab onto every thought and analyze it, worry about it, or try to control it. We can simply observe it and let it go, knowing that more thoughts will come, and just as easily, they will pass. The more we practice this, the less power our thoughts have over us. This approach to thinking can be difficult at first, especially if we've spent years identifying with our thoughts and becoming attached to them. However, with practice, we begin to see our thoughts for what they are: temporary and not inherently true. Not every thought deserves our attention or energy. In fact, many of our thoughts are simply mental chatter, arising from our subconscious mind or from habitual patterns of thinking. Some thoughts are based on fear or insecurity, while others are based on old memories or future projections. When we stop clinging to these thoughts, we start to create mental space, and this space allows for peace, clarity, and creativity to emerge. Let's take an example from everyday life to understand this concept better. Imagine you're preparing for a big meeting at work. You've done all the necessary preparation, but as the day of the meeting approaches, your mind begins to race with thoughts. What if I forget something important? What if they don't like my ideas? What if I make a mistake? These thoughts are not based on any real evidence or facts, They are simply imagined scenarios that have not yet occurred. But if you cling to these thoughts, they will only lead to stress and anxiety, making it harder to focus on the present moment. Instead, you can practice observing these thoughts as they arise. Here's that thought about making a mistake. You might say to yourself, okay, I'll just let that thought pass by, like a cloud in the sky. You don't have to attach to it, analyze it, or act on it. You can simply notice it and then release it, making space for more positive and useful thoughts. By doing this, you shift your focus back to the present moment, where you can focus on your breathing, stay grounded, and bring clarity to your actions. This principle of non-attachment to thoughts also has a profound effect on our emotional well-being. Often, our thoughts are closely tied to our emotions. If we allow ourselves to get caught up in negative thoughts, we also become attached to the corresponding negative emotions: fear, anger, frustration, and sadness. But when we practice non-attachment, we break the link between thought and emotion. We can observe our thoughts without getting swept away by them, and this helps us prevent our emotions from spiraling out of control. Let's say you're in a disagreement with a friend or loved one. You might have thoughts like, "They don't care about me," or "This is never going to be resolved." These thoughts may cause you to feel angry, upset, or hurt, but if you cling to these thoughts, they will only deepen your emotional distress. Instead, you can practice noticing the thought, acknowledging it, and then letting it go. "I notice I'm thinking that they don't care about me." You might say to yourself, "But I don't need to hold on to that thought. It's just a passing cloud." By letting go of the thought, you release the emotional grip it has on you, allowing you to respond more calmly and mindfully to the situation. This teaching of non-attachment to thoughts is not about suppressing or ignoring our emotions or thoughts. It's about allowing them to come and go without clinging to them. It's about recognizing that we don't have to identify with every thought or emotion that arises in our mind. Our thoughts are not who we are. They are simply mental events, and we have the power to choose how much importance we give them. As we cultivate this practice, we begin to notice a shift in our experience of the world. We become less reactive to our thoughts and emotions, and we start to create more space for peace and clarity. Instead of being swept away by the tides of overthinking, we become more anchored in the present moment, able to respond to life with greater awareness and mindfulness. Ultimately, the practice of letting go of attachment to our thoughts allows us to free ourselves from the constant noise of overthinking. It's like clearing away the mental fog, making space for the clarity and calm that is our natural state. When we stop identifying with our thoughts, we stop allowing them to control us, and we can experience the world with a sense of freedom and peace. By learning to observe our thoughts without attachment, we can bring greater mindfulness and calm into our lives. The more we practice, the more we realize that our thoughts don't define us. We are not our thoughts. We are the awareness that observes them. When we practice non-attachment, we can create a peaceful mental environment where overthinking no longer has the power to overwhelm us. Overthinking is a pervasive mental habit that, though often instinctive, can create significant suffering in our lives. It is a constant loop of thoughts where we revisit the same scenarios, worry about the same outcomes, and attempt to gain control over things that are, in fact, beyond our power. This habit not only drains our mental energy but also disturbs our peace of mind, leaving us feeling trapped in an endless cycle of anxiety, doubt, and stress. The more we overthink, the more we suffer. Over time, we can become so consumed by our mental chatter that we lose sight of what truly matters, and instead, we find ourselves spiraling into a state of worry and frustration. The Buddhist teachings offer a way out of this mental maze, urging us to let go of the things we cannot control. He pointed out that suffering is not caused by the events in our lives, but by our reaction to them. This profound insight highlights that it is not the external circumstances that bring us suffering, but our inner response to those circumstances. Overthinking is often an attempt to control or predict every possible outcome. We believe that by worrying enough or obsessing over every detail, we can somehow prevent disaster or ensure success. But the truth, as the Buddha teaches, is that much of life is beyond our control. The more we try to control the uncontrollable, the more we entrench ourselves in suffering. A significant part of the suffering caused by overthinking is rooted in the illusion of control. We often think that if we think hard enough, analyze the situation enough, or worry about it enough, we will somehow influence the outcome. But this belief is fundamentally flawed. There are countless aspects of life that are simply out of our hands, other people's actions, the weather, the economy, or the future itself. The need to control the uncontrollable is not just exhausting. It can also be paralyzing. It prevents us from fully experiencing life as it is, making it harder to adapt, grow, and find peace. When we overthink, we are often attempting to fix or change things that we have no influence over. This can create a great deal of stress and anxiety, as we essentially fight against the flow of life. In the face of this constant mental struggle, the Buddhist teaching encourages us to focus on what we can control, and more importantly, to let go of what we cannot. This practice of letting go is not about ignoring problems or avoiding responsibility. Rather, it's about releasing our attachment to the idea that we must control everything. We can make decisions, take actions, and plan for the future, but we cannot control every variable or predict every outcome. By acknowledging this, we free ourselves from the endless loop of overthinking and can approach life with greater ease and clarity. A powerful Buddhist story illustrates this idea beautifully. There was once a monk who observed a person struggling to push a heavy boulder up a hill. The person worked tirelessly, putting all their energy into the task. But no matter how hard they pushed, the boulder would not budge. The monk, noticing the futility of the situation, approached the person and asked, "Why are you pushing a boulder that is not moving?" The question was simple, but it carried profound wisdom. The person had been so fixated on the idea of moving the boulder that they had become blind to the fact that their efforts were in vain. By releasing their attachment to the need to control the outcome, they could step back, reassess the situation, and find peace. This story serves as a poignant reminder that overthinking and struggling against the impossible often only lead to exhaustion and frustration. By letting go of the need to control everything, we free ourselves from the cycle of unnecessary suffering. The boulder in the story is a metaphor for the many situations in life that we try to force or control, whether it's our relationships, career, health, or the actions of others. When we try to push these boulders uphill, we often find ourselves stuck in a pattern of overthinking, unable to make progress. Letting go doesn't mean giving up or resigning ourselves to fate. It means acknowledging that some things are simply out of our control and choosing to focus our energy on what we can influence. Overthinking often creates an illusion of control, where we believe that by analyzing every possible scenario, we can somehow influence the outcome. However, in doing so, we only increase our stress and anxiety. Take, for instance, the common experience of worrying about a job interview. It's natural to want to prepare and do well, but overthinking can take it to an unhealthy level. We start to ruminate on every word we said in past interviews, every possible question we might be asked, and every way things could go wrong. We believe that by obsessing over these details, we can somehow control the outcome, but in reality, we can only control our preparation and our actions during the interview, not the outcome itself. The more we dwell on the what-ifs, the more anxious we become, often sabotaging our own sense of confidence and clarity. The key to breaking the cycle of overthinking is to ask ourselves the simple question: is this something I can control? If the answer is no, then it's time to let go. This doesn't mean that we stop caring or that we abandon our goals. It means we accept that there are limits to our control and that we must release our attachment to the outcomes that are beyond our reach. By focusing on what we can control, our thoughts, our actions, and our responses to situations, we regain our sense of agency and reduce the unnecessary suffering caused by overthinking. For example, if you're facing a challenging situation at work, instead of overanalyzing every possible outcome, focus on the actions you can take in the present moment. Can you prepare for the task at hand? Can you communicate effectively with your team? Can you approach the situation with a clear mind and an open heart? These are things you can control. Worrying about what might go wrong or how others might react is beyond your control, and clinging to these thoughts will only increase your anxiety. By letting go of the need to control every aspect of the situation, you free yourself from the cycle of overthinking and allow yourself to act with greater clarity and purpose. This practice of letting go of control is not always easy, especially when we feel that something is at stake. We naturally want to protect ourselves from potential harm or failure, and overthinking can sometimes feel like an attempt to prevent disaster. But the more we practice letting go, the more we come to understand that true peace lies not in controlling the uncontrollable, but in accepting life as it is. We can still take action, make decisions, and work toward our goals, but we must also trust that we are not in control of every outcome. When we let go of the need for control, we begin to experience a deep sense of freedom and inner peace. Another example of how overthinking causes suffering can be seen in our personal relationships. We often overanalyze interactions with friends, family, or romantic partners, wondering if we said the right thing or whether the other person is upset with us. This kind of overthinking stems from our desire to control how others perceive us or to predict their reactions. We may spend hours or even days replaying conversations in our minds, trying to figure out what went wrong or what we could have said differently. But the truth is, we cannot control how others feel or think, nor can we control how they will respond to us. When we release our attachment to these thoughts and accept that relationships are complex and unpredictable, we allow ourselves to experience greater peace and understanding. In the end, overthinking is a self-inflicted form of suffering. It is the result of trying to control things that are beyond our power. The more we cling to the need for control, the more we struggle, and the more we suffer. By asking ourselves whether something is within our control and then letting go of the rest, we can break the cycle of overthinking and find peace. This process of letting go is not passive. It is an active choice to release attachment to outcomes and to trust in the flow of life. Through this practice, we can cultivate a deeper sense of freedom, clarity, and peace in our lives, no longer burdened by the weight of overthinking. Mindfulness, in its essence, is about bringing your full attention to the present moment without any judgment. It's a practice that invites you to step out of the relentless cycle of past regrets and future anxieties and into the simple, yet profound, experience of the now. It's easy to get caught up in overthinking our minds, racing with thoughts of what happened earlier, or what might happen next. The more we dwell in these thoughts, the more we distance ourselves from the peace and clarity that is available to us in the present moment. The practice of mindfulness, however, offers us a way to ground ourselves and find that peace amidst the noise of our minds. At its core, mindfulness is about observing our thoughts, emotions, and sensations without becoming attached to them. It's about creating space between our reactions and the stimuli we encounter, allowing us to choose how we respond instead of simply reacting. It's like standing back and watching a storm pass by, rather than being swept away by the wind and rain. When we practice mindfulness, we step outside of our mental chaos and gain the ability to simply observe our inner experience without getting lost in it. One of the simplest yet most powerful ways to practice mindfulness is through our breath. Our breath is always with us, in every moment, and it serves as an anchor to bring us back to the present when our minds begin to wander. The Buddhist teaching, when the mind is calm, the breath is calm, beautifully illustrates the connection between our mental and physical states. Our breath is an ever-present reflection of our inner world. When we are calm and at peace, our breath flows smoothly and effortlessly. But when we are anxious, stressed, or overwhelmed, our breath tends to become shallow and irregular. This shows us that by calming our breath, we can naturally calm our minds. The breath, then, becomes not just a physical act of inhaling and exhaling, but a doorway to stillness and clarity. For many of us, the breath is something we rarely pay attention to until we find ourselves in a stressful situation. Think about the last time you felt nervous, anxious, or overwhelmed. What happened to your breath? It likely became shallow, rapid, and uneven. Now, consider the opposite scenario. When you're relaxed, perhaps in a quiet moment, or sitting peacefully, your breath is deep and steady. By consciously slowing down our breath, we can send a signal to our brain to enter a state of calm. This shift in our physical state can have an immediate impact on our mental state. One of the most accessible mindfulness practices is simply focusing on your breath. When you feel your thoughts beginning to spiral, or you sense yourself becoming overwhelmed, pause for a moment and bring your awareness to your breath. Take a deep breath in, hold it for a moment, and then exhale slowly. Repeat this process a few times, and notice how it begins to bring your mind into the present moment. You may start to feel a sense of clarity and calmness emerge, as the thoughts that were consuming you begin to dissipate. It's as if your mind is being swept clean of the clutter, and in its place, there is space for peace to settle in. This practice of mindful breathing can be incredibly effective in breaking the cycle of overthinking. When our minds are consumed with worries, regrets, or uncertainties, it's easy to feel trapped in the whirlwind of thoughts. We can become so focused on what we cannot control, or what has already happened, that we lose touch with the only thing we can truly influence: the present moment. Mindful breathing helps us reconnect with the now, and in doing so, it interrupts the constant flow of overactive thinking. It's like hitting the pause button on our mental chatter and allowing ourselves to simply be. Let's take an example to make this more tangible. Imagine you're sitting in traffic, and you're running late for an important meeting. Your mind starts racing thoughts of being late, of how this will affect your day, of how others might perceive you. Start flooding your mind. Your heart rate increases, and you begin to feel stressed and frustrated. In this moment, your mind is lost in future worries, and you're reacting to the situation with anxiety. But then, instead of allowing your thoughts to spiral, you pause. You take a deep breath in, hold it for a moment, and exhale slowly. With each breath, you bring your attention back to the present moment. You notice the feeling of the air entering and leaving your lungs, the sensations in your body, and the sounds around you. As you focus on your breath, you start to feel a sense of calm wash over you. The future worries that were clouding your mind begin to fade, and you find yourself more grounded in the here and now. This is the power of mindfulness. It helps us regain control over our mental state by anchoring us in the present moment. It helps us let go of the uncontrollable future and return to the present, where we have the power to respond with clarity and calmness, instead of reacting with frustration and anxiety. Mindfulness allows us to respond with patience and acceptance. In the case of the traffic jam, you might still be late, but you can choose to handle the situation with a calm mind rather than getting caught up in frustration. The Buddhist teaching on mindfulness invites us to practice being fully present, not just in moments of stress, but throughout our daily lives. Mindfulness is not a tool we only use in moments of crisis. It is a way of being. It's about bringing our attention to the present moment, whether we're eating, walking, or talking to a friend. When we cultivate this awareness in every moment, we begin to experience life more fully. The simple act of paying attention to the breath is a reminder that peace and clarity are always available to us, no matter what is happening around us. Mindfulness can also help us break free from the cycle of overthinking by teaching us to observe our thoughts rather than becoming entangled in them. When we practice mindfulness, we begin to notice how thoughts arise in our minds, often without any conscious effort. These thoughts come and go, like clouds in the sky, but they don't have to define us. Instead of identifying with every thought, we can simply observe them and let them pass. Overthinking occurs when we get attached to our thoughts and start to believe that they define our reality. Mindfulness, on the other hand, teaches us to create distance from our thoughts, allowing them to flow without becoming entangled in them. By observing our thoughts with a sense of curiosity, rather than judgment, we can free ourselves from the grip of overthinking and return to the calm and clarity of the present moment. To make this practice more concrete, imagine you're sitting quietly, practicing mindfulness. As you focus on your breath, thoughts begin to arise in your mind. You might start thinking about what you need to do later in the day, or something that happened earlier. Instead of following these thoughts and getting lost in them, you simply observe them. You notice the thought, but you don't engage with it. It's like watching a cloud float by in the sky, acknowledging its presence without holding on to it. As you continue to breathe deeply and calmly, the thoughts naturally begin to fade, and you return to the breath. This practice of observing thoughts without attachment is one of the most powerful ways to quiet the mind and stop the cycle of overthinking. Mindfulness is a practice that can be done anywhere and anytime. Whether you're sitting at home, walking in nature, or even in the middle of a busy day, you can always bring your awareness back to the breath. It's a tool that is always available to us. And the more we practice, the more we begin to cultivate a sense of peace and stillness within ourselves. Over time, mindfulness can become a natural part of our lives, allowing us to approach each moment with greater presence, awareness, and clarity. In summary, mindfulness is a transformative practice that helps us break free from the cycle of overthinking and find peace in the present moment. By anchoring ourselves in our breath, we can quiet the mind and return to the clarity that lies within us. Whether we're facing stress, uncertainty, or overwhelming emotions, mindfulness allows us to create space for peace and stillness. Through consistent practice, we can cultivate a calm and centered mind, freeing ourselves from the chaos of overthinking and embracing the tranquility of the present moment. In today's world, where we're constantly bombarded with information, expectations, and responsibilities, it's all too easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of overthinking. Our minds are overloaded, and we often find ourselves worrying about things that are beyond our control: our jobs, our relationships, our appearance, the future, and even things we cannot predict or influence. In this constant state of anxiety and stress, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. Buddhist teachings, however, offer a different perspective, a perspective that emphasizes simplicity as the key to finding peace, contentment, and freedom from overthinking. The Buddhist teachings on simplicity remind us that happiness and peace don't need to be chased after they're found in the simple, everyday moments of life. In fact, happiness, according to Buddhism, is not a distant goal or something to be attained through constant striving. Instead, happiness is the path itself. Buddha once said, "There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path." This teaching underscores the idea that we don't need to complicate our lives with unnecessary worries or expectations in order to experience joy. Rather, happiness is embedded in the present moment, in the simplicity of living without excessive attachment to outcomes, expectations, or things that don't truly serve us. At first glance, the idea of simplicity might seem too basic or even counterintuitive. After all, we live in a world that constantly urges us to do more, have more, and be more. We are told that success and fulfillment come from accumulating achievements, possessions, or experiences. But Buddhism teaches us that this pursuit of complexity, whether it's striving for success, worrying about how we appear to others, or clinging to endless desires, is what causes suffering. Overthinking and overcomplicating our lives only lead to confusion, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. The key to peace, according to Buddhism, lies in returning to simplicity, simplifying both our external lives and our internal thought processes. When we simplify our lives, we free ourselves from the constant weight of worry and mental clutter. We release the need to constantly do and instead focus on simply being. We stop overthinking everything and, in turn, discover the freedom that comes from living with less attachment to things and outcomes. One of the fundamental teachings in Zen Buddhism highlights the importance of simplicity. Zen monks practice a principle called shubumi, which refers to the beauty of simplicity. Shubumi is the art of living with grace and ease, without the need for excess or complication. It's about appreciating the beauty and richness of life in its most basic form. One Zen master famously said, "The simpler the life, the more profound the meaning." This statement speaks volumes about how, by reducing mental clutter and external distractions, we create space for deeper understanding and peace in our lives. It's through simplicity that we find greater clarity, purpose, and meaning in the context of our modern lives. Shubumi encourages us to pare down the unnecessary, whether it's physical possessions, emotional baggage, or the constant barrage of thoughts and worries that crowd our minds. By simplifying, we make room for what truly matters: meaningful relationships, personal growth, and the quiet moments of joy that come from being present in the here and now. we begin to understand that happiness is not something we need to chase after it's found in the space we create when we let go of unnecessary distractions. Think about the times in your life when you felt truly at peace. Was it when you were caught up in a whirlwind of responsibilities and to-do lists? Or was it when you took a step back and simply enjoyed a quiet moment? For many people, peace is found in simplicity. It's found in the quiet of a morning walk, the warmth of a conversation with a friend, or the stillness of watching the sunset. It's in these simple moments that we experience a deep sense of contentment when we let go of our constant need for more and instead focus on the richness of the present moment. Consider a more tangible example. Imagine you're cleaning out your closet. Over time, your closet has accumulated a vast number of clothes, some of which you haven't worn in years. You've been holding on to them, not because they add value to your life, but because you're afraid to let go. The process of sifting through these items and making decisions about what to keep or donate might feel overwhelming at first. But once you've simplified the space and removed the unnecessary clutter, you feel lighter, more organized, and clearer. Your mind feels less burdened, and you're left with only what is truly useful and meaningful. This physical act of simplifying has an immediate effect on your mental and emotional state, proving how simplification in one area of life can have a ripple effect on our overall well-being. Similarly, in our thoughts and emotions, we tend to accumulate layers of unnecessary worries and concerns. We overthink our relationships, our careers, our futures, and even our past mistakes. But in the end, these worries only drain us and add to our stress. By simplifying our mental processes, by letting go of the constant need to analyze and judge, we can free ourselves from the mental clutter that keeps us trapped in cycles of overthinking. In fact, when we learn to simplify our thoughts and actions, we experience a deeper sense of freedom. This freedom comes from the realization that we don't need to control everything or constantly strive for perfection. We begin to see that much of what we worry about is beyond our control and, therefore, not worth the energy we give it. We start to recognize that true peace comes not from the pursuit of external goals, but from an inner sense of calm and acceptance of what is. One of the main reasons why we complicate our lives is because we're constantly striving for external validation or approval, whether it's our appearance, our job status, or our social media image. We can easily become entangled in the need to impress others or live up to societal expectations. But Buddhism teaches us that this external validation is fleeting and unreliable. True peace and freedom come from within. When we stop seeking approval from others and start living in alignment with our true selves, we experience the liberation that comes with letting go of societal pressures. Letting go of unnecessary worries and expectations allows us to embrace the simplicity of life. It means we stop obsessing over how things should be and instead accept things as they are. This doesn't mean we stop striving for personal growth or self-improvement. It simply means we stop overcomplicating things with unnecessary mental gymnastics and judgments. We learn to focus on what truly matters, and in doing so, we make room for peace, joy, and clarity to naturally arise. In practical terms, this means that we begin to prioritize our energy. We let go of things that drain us or keep us trapped in patterns of worry and overthinking. We simplify our goals, our relationships, and our daily routines to create a life that is centered around what is truly important. This may involve making tough choices, like cutting back on obligations that don't serve us or saying no to distractions that take us away from our deeper values. But when we simplify our lives in this way, we not only reduce stress and anxiety, but we also create space for the things that truly nourish us. One powerful way to incorporate simplicity into your life is through the practice of mindfulness. By focusing on the present moment and letting go of the need to constantly analyze or judge, you can begin to simplify your mental state. You don't have to think about everything at once. You can take one thing at a time, giving it your full attention without distraction. This focus on the present moment helps clear away unnecessary worries and mental clutter, bringing you back to a place of clarity and peace. Another way to simplify your life is by embracing the principle of less is more. This can be applied to everything from the physical clutter in your home to the overwhelming number of choices you make throughout the day. By reducing the excess, we can create more space for what really matters: our relationships, our passions, and our personal growth. Whether it's letting go of material possessions that no longer serve us or simplifying our schedule to make more time for rest and reflection, the act of simplifying creates room for deeper joy and meaning. Ultimately, simplifying your life isn't about doing less for the sake of doing less. It's about creating more space for what brings you peace, joy, and fulfillment. It's about removing the distractions and mental clutter that prevent you from fully experiencing the present moment. When we simplify our lives, whether it's through our thoughts, actions, or physical surroundings, we create an environment where peace can flourish. Simplicity allows us to embrace life as it is, without overcomplicating things with unnecessary worries, expectations, or distractions. In this simplicity, we find freedom, and in that freedom, we find peace. Life is constantly shifting, evolving, and changing. We may find ourselves experiencing moments of happiness, sadness, or frustration, but one thing is certain: nothing remains static. The core Buddhist teaching on impermanence reminds us of a simple but profound truth: nothing lasts forever. From the events that shape our lives to the thoughts and emotions that pass through our minds, everything is in a constant state of flux. Our worries, our stresses, our anxieties, and even our overthinking, they are all transient. When we grasp the reality of impermanence, we unlock the ability to let go of fear and anxiety, recognizing that even our toughest struggles are only temporary. The Buddhist teachings on impermanence invite us to acknowledge the impermanent nature of everything in life. In fact, he once said, "All conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence." This statement carries immense wisdom. We live in a world where change is the only constant. Yet so often, we hold on tightly to our struggles, thinking they will last forever. We get trapped in cycles of overthinking, worrying that our difficulties, whether emotional, mental, or physical, are permanent fixtures in our lives. But the Buddha's words offer us comfort. Our troubles, just like our joys, are fleeting. What we experience now, no matter how painful or overwhelming, will eventually pass. This realization is crucial to breaking free from the grip of overthinking and finding a path to inner peace. Impermanence is a concept that is deeply embedded in Buddhist philosophy. Everything we encounter in life, from the smallest of moments to the largest of events, is subject to change. This includes our thoughts, emotions, and experiences. Just as the seasons shift from winter to spring, our mental and emotional states shift as well. The Buddha's wisdom encourages us to observe this impermanence and to release the illusion of permanence. If we learn to embrace change as a natural part of life, we can reduce our attachment to things that no longer serve us. This, in turn, reduces the power overthinking has over our lives. For many of us, overthinking is a form of resistance to change. When we face challenging situations or difficult emotions, we often hold on tightly to them, fearing that they might never end. We spiral into worry, imagining the worst-case scenario, and become trapped in our thoughts. But when we realize that nothing lasts forever, including our worries and anxieties, we are able to release that resistance. We begin to understand that even our most difficult moments will eventually change. This understanding allows us to loosen the grip of overthinking and accept the present moment as it is, without getting lost in fear of what might come next. One powerful way to connect with the concept of impermanence is by observing nature. Imagine standing by the ocean and watching the waves crash onto the shore. Each wave rises and falls, constantly shifting and changing. Yet the ocean remains vast and endless. No wave is the same as the one before it. Similarly, our thoughts and emotions are like the waves of the ocean. They come and go, but they don't define us. The more we observe the transient nature of our thoughts and feelings, the less power they have over us. We can allow them to come, observe them, and then let them pass without attachment. Just as the ocean's waves flow freely, so can our thoughts and emotions, when we recognize their impermanent nature. An example that many can relate to is the experience of stress at work. Perhaps there is a looming deadline or a project that feels overwhelming. In the moment, the stress can feel consuming, and it's easy to believe that the pressure will never end. However, when we step back and recognize the impermanence of the situation, we can see that it's just one moment in time. The stress we're feeling is not permanent. It will pass once the project is completed, or once we adjust to the demands of the situation. By keeping this perspective in mind, we can ease the weight of overthinking and reduce the emotional intensity of the situation. Instead of getting stuck in a cycle of worry, we can allow ourselves to experience the challenge with clarity, knowing that it's temporary and manageable. In relationships, too, the teaching on impermanence can be transformative. It's easy to get caught up in the ups and downs of our interactions with others, especially when emotions run high. Whether it's a disagreement, a misunderstanding, or a period of distance between you and a loved one, it can feel like the relationship is in a state of turmoil. However, when we remember the impermanent nature of all things, we can approach the situation with more patience and compassion. We don't need to cling to the belief that the current state of the relationship is permanent. Instead, we can accept that relationships go through cycles, just like everything else in life. Disagreements are temporary, misunderstandings can be resolved, and emotional pain will eventually subside. By trusting in impermanence, we free ourselves from the mental trap of believing that our struggles and relationships will last forever. Impermanence also invites us to embrace the natural ebb and flow of our inner lives. We all have days when we feel overwhelmed by emotions, fear, sadness, anger, or anxiety. These emotions can feel all-encompassing in the moment. But when we reflect on the principle of impermanence, we recognize that these emotions, too, will pass. Just as clouds drift through the sky, so do our emotions drift through our minds. This awareness gives us the space to not be defined by our feelings or overwhelmed by them. Instead of becoming consumed by a temporary emotional state, we can allow ourselves to ride the wave of that emotion without attaching to it. We recognize that it's temporary, and soon, it will change. In a more personal context, consider a moment in your life when you were deeply anxious or fearful about something, perhaps a major life decision, a health issue, or a difficult transition. In those moments, it's easy to imagine that the fear or anxiety you feel will last forever. But when you look back, you realize that those feelings were transient. They eventually passed, and you were able to move through the situation. This is the power of impermanence. It's a reminder that, no matter how intense or overwhelming a situation might feel in the moment, it's only temporary. The same holds true for our overthinking. We may find ourselves trapped in cycles of worry, but by remembering that nothing is permanent, we can release the grip of overthinking and trust that this moment too shall pass. This concept of impermanence doesn't just apply to our internal states, it extends to the external world as well. Life events, circumstances, and even the world around us are constantly changing. We may find ourselves experiencing a period of financial hardship, health struggles, or personal loss. These events can feel crushing in the moment, and we might get lost in the narrative that things will never improve. But when we remind ourselves of the impermanence of all things, we see that even our most difficult external circumstances will eventually change. The challenges we face are not forever, they are part of the natural cycle of life. By embracing impermanence, we can approach our struggles with more equanimity, knowing that change is inevitable and that we will grow through whatever we are facing. Ultimately, embracing the impermanence of life helps us develop a sense of resilience. It allows us to approach challenges with a mindset of adaptability, knowing that nothing is fixed or permanent. This awareness frees us from the tyranny of overthinking, as we recognize that even our fears and anxieties are fleeting. The more we trust in the ebb and flow of life, the more we can approach life with a sense of calm, knowing that whatever arises, it will eventually pass. When we allow ourselves to deeply integrate the teaching of impermanence into our daily lives, we begin to experience a profound shift in how we view and respond to life's challenges. We stop holding on to our fears, anxieties, and overthinking, and instead begin to live with greater trust and acceptance. By trusting in impermanence, we release the need to control everything and allow life to unfold as it will. This acceptance brings us peace, clarity, and the ability to move through life with greater ease and less mental clutter. So, whenever you find yourself caught up in overthinking, overwhelmed by your fears, or consumed by your struggles, remember, everything is impermanent. Your thoughts, your emotions, and your challenges will pass, and in that knowledge, you can find the freedom to live fully in the present moment. Overthinking is one of those universal experiences that, at some point, affects nearly everyone. It's a mental habit that can overwhelm our thoughts, leave us feeling exhausted, and make even simple situations feel complex and unmanageable. The Buddhist teachings offer profound insight into how we can break free from this cycle of overthinking and find peace, focus, and clarity. As we've seen through the 6 teachings explored, the path to inner tranquility isn't necessarily about eliminating all thoughts or achieving some state of mental blankness. Instead, it's about changing our relationship with our thoughts and learning to live more fully in the present moment. The first teaching, the past is gone, the future is uncertain, focus on the present moment, serves as a foundational principle. It's easy to become trapped by the weight of past regrets or by the anxieties of an unknown future. But Buddha's wisdom reminds us that the only moment that truly exists is now. This teaching urges us to reframe how we approach the passage of time and our thoughts. We don't need to carry the burden of the past or the fear of the future with us, as these are illusions that pull us away from the present. To be present is to live fully in each moment as it comes, without clinging to what's already gone or worrying about what might happen. Consider, for instance, the classic example of a person worrying about a presentation at work the next day. Instead of focusing on what might go wrong, how the audience might react, or obsessing over the past mistakes, one could practice mindfulness by focusing on the present, how their breath feels, what they can do right now to prepare, and simply acknowledging the moment without judgment. This shift in perspective doesn't eliminate the challenges, but it frees the mind from getting lost in them, allowing one to experience a greater sense of calm and clarity. The second teaching, thoughts are like clouds, let them pass without clinging, provides another crucial tool in overcoming overthinking. One of the fundamental aspects of overthinking is our attachment to our thoughts. We often identify ourselves with what we think, allowing every fleeting thought to influence our emotions and behaviors. However, the Buddha encourages us to adopt the perspective that thoughts are like clouds, they come and go, and we don't need to attach ourselves to them. Just as clouds drift across the sky, our thoughts drift across our minds, and they don't define who we are. For example, if you're sitting in a coffee shop, mindlessly scrolling through your phone, and a negative thought pops into your head, perhaps about an interaction you had with a friend earlier in the day, there's an opportunity to practice this teaching. Instead of ruminating on that thought, trying to analyze it or change it, you simply let it go. You acknowledge the thought, and then let it drift away like a passing cloud. The more you practice this, the more you free yourself from the grip of overthinking. Each thought becomes less powerful when you learn not to cling to it, making space for clarity and peace. The third teaching, overthinking creates suffering, let go of what you can't control, highlights a key cause of mental suffering, the illusion of control. It's easy to get caught up in the need to control every outcome in life. But the Buddhist teaching reminds us that many aspects of life are beyond our control. Overthinking often arises from our desire to influence what cannot be changed. The more we try to micromanage every detail, the more we suffer. Imagine, for instance, being in a car stuck in traffic. The more you worry about how late you will be, how you could have avoided the traffic, or how to make the situation better, the more you increase your stress. But in that moment, the only thing you can control is your response to the situation. By letting go of the need to control the uncontrollable, you can release the tension and allow yourself to experience a sense of peace, knowing that stress only adds to the suffering, without changing the outcome. One Buddhist monk observed the futility of trying to move a boulder uphill. The person struggling to push the stone was not getting anywhere, and the monk simply asked why they were expending so much energy on a task that was impossible. This story is a reminder that there are moments in life when we must accept that certain things are beyond our control, and when we let go of our attachment to controlling them, we are freed from suffering. Overthinking often arises from our attachment to outcomes, and letting go of this attachment brings freedom. The fourth teaching, practice mindfulness, anchor yourself in your breath to quiet the mind, is one of the most practical tools for combating overthinking. Mindfulness teaches us to focus on the present moment, observing our thoughts without judgment or attachment. The act of focusing on the breath helps anchor us in the now, breaking the cycle of overthinking and allowing our minds to quiet. In daily life, mindfulness can be practiced in many simple ways. For example, when you find yourself overwhelmed by a multitude of thoughts, pause and take a deep breath. Inhale slowly, hold for a moment, and exhale. Notice how your body feels with each breath. This simple act brings you back to the present moment, and soon, the mental noise begins to dissipate. It's a small but powerful way to center yourself in a chaotic world. The Buddha's saying, "When the mind is calm, the breath is calm," shows us the intimate connection between our mental state and our physical state. By calming our breath, we can calm our mind. The fifth teaching, simplicity is freedom. Stop complicating life with unnecessary worries, is particularly relevant in our modern, fast-paced world. The pressure to succeed, to do more, to accumulate more, these external demands often lead us into mental clutter. We add unnecessary worries to our lives by overcomplicating things that need not be so difficult. The Buddha advocates for simplicity, not just in our actions but in our thoughts. Simplicity offers us freedom from the endless cycle of overthinking and worry. Take, for example, the Zen practice of Shubhomi, which refers to the beauty of simplicity. In many aspects of life, we complicate things by overanalyzing them or adding layers of unnecessary concern. By simplifying our lives by focusing on what truly matters and letting go of distractions, we allow room for peace to emerge. When you let go of the need to impress others or live up to external expectations, you free yourself from the burden of worry. This simplicity is not about doing less, but about doing what truly matters and doing it with clarity and purpose. Finally, the sixth teaching, trust in impermanence, nothing lasts forever, offers profound wisdom. It teaches us to recognize that nothing in life, whether it's joy or suffering, is permanent. Everything is in a constant state of change. Our struggles, our worries, and even our overthinking will eventually pass. When we understand that nothing lasts forever, we stop fearing the future and we let go of the anxieties that trap us. Every difficult moment will pass, and we'll have the opportunity to experience something new. When we're stuck in overthinking, it's easy to believe that our challenges will never end, that the things we're worried about will stay with us forever. But by reminding ourselves that everything is impermanent, we can see our worries for what they truly are: temporary, fleeting, and not worth holding on to. This awareness allows us to let go of our overthinking, knowing that it, too, will pass. In conclusion, these 6 Buddhist teachings offer timeless wisdom for overcoming overthinking and finding peace of mind. They invite us to embrace the present moment, detach from unnecessary thoughts, let go of our desire for control, simplify our lives, and trust in the impermanence of all things. By incorporating these teachings into our daily lives, we can begin to train our minds to be calmer, more focused, and more at peace. The power to find inner peace lies within us, and with practice and patience, we can cultivate a mind that is free from the chains of overthinking. As you go forward in your own journey, may you remember these teachings, and may they guide you toward a life of greater clarity, peace, and presence. And there you have it, 6 life-changing Buddhist teachings that can help you stop overthinking and reclaim your peace of mind. It's incredible how such simple, yet profound insights can completely shift the way we experience our thoughts, our emotions, and the world around us. By embracing the present moment, letting go of unnecessary worries, simplifying our lives, and trusting in the impermanence of everything, we open ourselves up to a life that's free from the constant chaos of overthinking. But here's the key: like any meaningful change, it takes practice. You won't stop overthinking overnight, and that's okay. The important thing is that you now have the tools to begin the journey towards a calmer, more focused, and more peaceful mind. Every time you find yourself slipping into overthinking, Remember these teachings and gently bring yourself back to the present moment. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. And with consistent effort, you'll find that over time, your mind becomes more peaceful, more clear, and more aligned with the present moment. I hope you found these teachings as powerful and transformative as I do. If you did, make sure to hit that like button to show your support. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss another video that can help you create a life filled with more peace, clarity, and mindfulness. And if you know someone who could benefit from this wisdom, please share this video with them. Together, we can help more people break free from the grip of overthinking and discover the inner peace they deserve. Thank you for watching. And remember, the mind is a powerful tool. By applying these Buddhist teachings, you can start to train your mind to be calm, focused, and at peace. Stay present, stay peaceful, and may you find tranquility in every moment. I look forward to continuing this journey of mindfulness and inner peace with you. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.